This is part 2 of our interview with Dr. Russell Ramsay about minimizing procrastination and taking control of your time to reclaim the hours lost to charting and admin work and shifting that balance away from work and back towards life. So again, this is part 2 of 2. So if you missed the first part, check out last week and then start listening. And for those who missed it, Dr. Russell Ramsay is a psychologist specializing in the assessment and psychosocial treatment of adult ADHD. He has lectured internationally and is widely published. His books include CBT for adult ADHD, non-medication treatments for adult ADHD, the Adult ADHD Toolkit, Rethinking Adult ADHD, Adults with ADHD, and the Adult ADHD and Anxiety Workbook. Again, this is not just for those with ADHD. These tools help all of us to be more efficient, tipping the scales in work-life balance away from work towards life. You're listening to Succeed in Medicine, the show for practicing physicians who want to master the parts of their career and life that med school never prepared us for. From interpersonal skills to career navigation to the essential information every physician needs. I'm Dr. Bradley Block, and in every episode, we bring you brass tacks advice and immediately applicable insights from world-class experts so you can feel prepared wherever your MD takes you and build a life in medicine that's sustainable, rewarding, and actually worth all those years of sacrifice. Welcome back to the podcast, Dr. Ramsay. Thank you so much for coming back again for part 2.
Brad, thanks for having me again.
So when we left off in the last episode, we were starting to talk about procrastination. And as you've said in the past, the relapse rate for procrastination is 100%. So my first question is, how do we forgive ourselves for the balance between forgiving ourselves for procrastination while still trying to minimize it? Because if we're doing nothing but forgiving ourselves for it, we're just going to keep doing it.
Part of it is the reframe of normalization. It happens. It'll happen whether or not you have ADHD. And we won't get into this in much detail, but I outline a whole bunch of ways that being off task might not be procrastination, including probably for many of you and many of your colleagues, overcommitment and just the nature of the job sometimes, just taking more time than you plan for, things like that, where that can have ripple effects. But I think another benefit, and we'll talk about progressivity, which has been very helpful for what I'm about to say, is rather than your only coping mechanism being, I have to try harder and harder to not procrastinate, it's really understanding all the elements that go into procrastination, and there are several, at least I think. So that way it gives you, when you consider how did I end up procrastinating again, you actually have an answer to that. Oh, I didn't plan, I didn't really commit to doing it, or I didn't reserve a time in my schedule for it, or I was juggling, it was catching up on work. That could be 18 different things. I have to choose one of those to make it specific enough that it feels, and I think it's doable so that I can actually do it rather than, okay, work could mean so many things. Now I'm stuck, and so I might as well go on my phone until I figure it out. So there's a lot of different ways to break it down, at least into a manageable chunk. It doesn't have to be A through Z in terms of every single step, but enough to get started on something that almost invariably will feel better having made at least some progress on it by the end of this session.
Wait, so I don't totally understand how progressivity fits in with that. There are a couple things that you need to do in this moment that are your priority, and you're choosing to do something else less important because it gets it off your to-do list. Is that
less important, but still a have to, still a chore of some point?
Yeah.
So it might be for you, instead of doing documentation, it might be, I don't know, organizing your computer files or catching up on emails or the communication with it, which is
a big
important.
pile of papers and throwing some in the garbage.
It has to be done eventually, but it's like a trade-off. It's like a plea bargain. I'll do that. It's also known as productive procrastination because, hey, I got something done, and it can be a positive if we salvage a day. Okay, I didn't get much done this weekend. Let me go quick mow the lawn, so at least I did something.
Yeah.
The example as I use, it's a Saturday, late March, you say, I'm going to get a head start on taxes this year. I want to be on time, but I'm going to mow the lawn instead. Yes, that's a good idea. I'll mow the lawn first, then I'll be in the mood to do taxes. The best example, best or worst, depending how you want to look at it, and this is all disguised, but I was working with somebody who's a bench scientist in a graduate program and was meant to do journal club the next day, present a paper to the lab. And we talked about it. They hadn't started it yet, but they had a plan for when I get home from lab, I've got the article. I'll just quick review it, throw together 5 slides. I'll be done. They got home and they had been watching some baking shows and got hit with the flash. Well, I'm going to bake a cake. Yes, I will bake a cake and then I'll do it. And one thing led to another. And then we're talking about how she had to trade off with somebody else. And she said to me, you know what, on top of that, and she said it was something I wanted to try, but she said to me, and Dr. Ramsay, I'm diabetic. I can't eat the cake. And it wasn't for a neighbor or a nephew. So it was just about doing it, but it was this elaborate way to put off and delay something.
Yeah.
But in learning now, procrastivity, I did not invent the term. Some people think I did. I got it from a client. And as much as you can believe Urban Dictionary, hard-hitting peer review, it's been around in the culture since about 2010. So it is putting off a priority task for doing something else that has to be done, but is much easier and lower priority. And it got me thinking, well, what is it about that task? You know, you organizing your papers or baking the cake that is more appealing? And are there any ways we can repurpose those for the priority task? And one thing seems to be the escape task, the procrastivity task tends to be more hands-on, organizing papers, mowing the lawn, baking a cake.
It sounds like
Okay.
hands-on, but also
Lower cognitive load. And even among academic or high brain tasks, like, you know, documentation versus writing a manuscript or something, or like students with, there's probably a rock, paper, scissors algorithm, like writing is harder than a reading assignment, reading's harder than a problem set, or whatever. It's probably very personalized. There's usually a clearer onboarding script for mowing the lawn. There's a literal recipe for the kid.
So you know what your first step is.
You know, and you've probably done it
Got
before
it.
too. It's familiar.
Yeah.
Okay, I put on my playlist, you know, fill up the lawnmower. There's a clear sense of what you'll accomplish in the time. There's, you know, bake in the oven for this long. If you're mowing your own lawn, you know, plus or minus probably a couple moments, how long it'll take you. There's a clear sense of making and sustaining progress and a clear endpoint. The lawn is done, the cake is done, whereas the journal club, the slides, you still don't know how it's going to go over. Is this good enough?
Yeah.
Working on the paper, probably or taxes, you're going to have to do a little bit more. And who knows, maybe find out, oh, I'm farther behind than I thought I was. Not necessarily, but it can feel that way. So these ways of turning the priority task into one, is there a way to at least making the start of it hands-on? Open on all the envelopes to say important tax document enclosed? Or like with the article, can I read the abstract and just write out and open up the slide set and just even do my introductory slide, my name, institution, even though you're presenting at the same institution. All these things that aren't really making much substantive process, but at least they're engaging in it. It's touching the task.
Yeah.
And other things.
I see how
like
those tie together really well, right? Because those
yeah.
are low cognitive energy tasks, but at least, and then you're started, and then again, like you said, touching the task.
It's getting
and then
to the
momentum,
gym, it's wearing the
and the momentum
clothes.
starts carrying you. And
Exactly.
you might hit a roadblock, but
Yeah.
at least you're starting off in that direction.
And with all these things like that, the grad student had presented before, knew the science, so it wasn't like it was somebody off the street doing something like, oh, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Now, that can be another thing that can get in the way of somebody getting started. There's an element of it that maybe some new tax rule, or they go, oh, I don't know if I can write this off or not. That becomes a sticking point. Then that becomes another task. Can you get accurate information? Call your accountant, look it up, or just, maybe don't submit it as...
do that one thing. Make a to-do list of those particular roadblocks.
Exactly.
And now you've got everything done except for those couple of things. And now you've got actually a recipe, right? You've got your task list of things you need to do, and that's all you have left now.
Right.
And it's in an organized way.
And even with the other things, that it's more predictable how long they will take. So this is creating either a time-bounded task. I can work on this for at least 10 minutes, and maybe leaving a buffer if you can keep going is great. Or it could be a task-oriented. I want to write at least 200 words, or I want to at least open all the envelopes and organize them in digital equivalents and things like that. But usually once we get started and we're engaged in it, rather than it being conceptual and we can think all the 85 ways it could go wrong, now even if it's not going well, there's only one way it's not going well, but more likely that we're making some progress, even if it's like on the screen for the taxes, okay, name, social, address, all those things, the administrative stuff, but that is still progress that has to be made. So it's just different ways to engage with the task, because then usually we're going to keep going and it's going to work out better than we thought it would.
So for the procrastivity, if we find ourselves doing those low priority tasks instead of the things that we really should be doing, then one thing, understand why you're doing it, because it's a high cognitive task. It's got an unclear time that it's going to take. You don't know where to begin. So those are the things that tend to make it less appealing in terms of what we should do next.
Right.
So
and
first,
jumping in there, and even with the priority tasks like the taxes or documentation, when you're planning to start documentation, start to think about, all right, why do I want to do this? The valuation, and what is the first step or two I need to do to get it started? When I was at Penn, we used Epic. Let me open Epic. I get no money from the Epic, the good people at Epic, for this sponsorship right now. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to log in. I'm going to go to, just the list of patients, and be it eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or the most overdue or the most recent, wherever, just click on one, and guess what? You started. Even if you stop then, you didn't procrastinate, but you hopefully want to go further.
So that touching of the task, that's amazing advice. And so immediately actionable, because that CBT end of it, one, we understand why we're doing it, and that'll help us manage it better because we're understanding the thought process behind it. And then two, it gives us something to do and a way to get started. And so you find something easy that's involved in it that you can do next and start there.
And you covered the cognitive. We believe we can do it. It's simple. It's straightforward. Oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
Do taxes is, but open the envelope. So I can do that.
Yeah.
You mentioned the behavioral. That's, believing I can do it and doing it. But an important piece, and this is true of everybody with procrastination, there's a big emotional component, be it anxiety, the uncertainty. Am I going to have enough money to cover the debts? Is my documentation going to be okay? Is this a complex case? And all these swirling things. It's also, drawing on, some of the treatments for various emotions, particularly anxiety, is an exposure. Okay, I can still feel some discomfort, but once I get started, that is a great way, and it's very supported, that doing it with the uncomfortable feeling. And then it's not like, it's 45 minutes when I'm done, then I get relief. No, it's usually early on. And again, that resignation, all right, I might as well keep going. I've started and I'm into it and I'm making progress. So we feel more competent. Well, with competency is thinking, but it's also that feeling like this is going okay. So that relief, and it doesn't have to be, joy, I really enjoy doing documentation, but there's something in the middle there where it's like, okay, I can keep going. This is happening. And that is a big positive. And again, it doesn't take till the end. And even in the middle, if you go, this is really complex, but I want to put this down for now and I'll go back and review it later, or whatever the case may be. It's a way to engage. And that's the thing. It's engaging with the reality rather than the conceptualization of all the ways it could go badly or whatever.
Feeling stuck in your medical career? You are not the only one. And you don't have to figure it out alone. I'm Dr. Michael Hirsch, and this is Better Physician Life, a new podcast about the messy middle of a career in medicine. We'll talk about those moments when the dream you worked so hard for doesn't quite feel like the dream anymore, and what it's like to find your way forward. Every Monday, we'll have an honest conversation about rediscovering meaning in your work, reshaping your life in medicine, and creating a life and career you don't need to escape from. Because you can love your life and your career again. And it starts right here. Follow Better Physician Life with Dr. Michael Hirsch wherever you listen to podcasts, and start your next chapter today. A proud member of the Doctor Podcast Network.
So when I've got like a list of tasks that I need to do, right? So I sometimes will have a to-do list is what I'm getting at. And if I find myself with a little bit of downtime, I'll go to my to-do list and I'll think, what on this list can I do in whatever time I have? Now, my to-do list is in the notes section of my phone, and it is a hot mess because below it is the previous iteration of my to-do list. And below that is the iteration before it, and below that is the iteration before it, and on the bottom there are all those tasks that will never get done, and that's where tasks go to die, right until I make my next iteration of the to-do list based on whatever I've got going on. So not the most efficient thing, but I found that it works for me because then when I have that downtime, I can go to that list, refer to that list. Do you have any, because you discuss daily planners and to-do lists as a way to stay organized. And so let's just start off with, what are your common mistakes that you see people making with either their daily planners or to-do lists?
I'll start with the daily planner or some sort of calendar, something, whatever works. I'm not married to any one thing. It seems though, and colleagues I respect seem to agree with this, and there's also some data that seems like something that allows you to write down things. Not that you're relying on, oh, I wrote it down, now I'll remember it, but externalization of information so that we can see it. And that itself, especially if it's in our own hand, provides a prompt. So I think we get 24 hours in a day, 168 hours in a week. So thinking about it like dollars, I get $168. What gets taken out for sleep, family time? And I'm a big believer in scheduling downtime, recreation. That's really important. And also so that we can be more efficient with the have tos, so we can get to the want tos and have more time for them. So I think we underutilize our planners because also, the goal is not to fill up every hour. And I think it's useful having a semblance of a schedule for days off or weekend times, including for going to the gym, trips to the park with the family or the zoo or whatever you're into. I didn't mean to sound like Dr. Seuss just then. But also the reality for those of us who do have to put in a couple hours on the weekend, when are we going to do it? You're talking about like times of your day. I talk about the real estate of our day. What are the high-end properties, like usually in the morning for people where they go, I know for me, if I have to do writing, if I can do that first thing, that's the best for me. And maybe later in the day, it's like running errands, physical stuff that are lower cognitive load. But whatever works for the individual, it allows you to see it's your time machine. Now, the to-do list, I think I came up with a term for those items that go on the list to die. I call it taxidermy. But unlike the origin of that analogy, I think there are ways to bring them back to life or cross them off to say, this isn't happening, or I really didn't want to do that, or whatever the case may be. But how I think about the to-do list, these are things like you might not have to put go to work on your to-do list or else you'll forget about it and your schedule's probably set for you. But things like finding time for documentation, those are things that might require dedicated time at some point in the flow of your day or week that you make an appointment with yourself for. That pre-commitment can be helpful, just as it is for a gym or things like, and these are self-regulation, a personal trainer or signing up for an exercise class. Oh, I should
You're
be able to
externalizing it, right?
I should be able to do it myself. Well, that's self-regulation. If you go, okay, if I hire this person $25 to talk me through things I should be able to do on myself, and this is not a dig at anybody, it's body doubling.
When I was a personal trainer at Penn in 2001, that's probably the amount that I was paid, $25.
Okay.
Penn, which is where you worked, and that's my alma mater. My undergrad. I was a personal trainer there during my senior year.
There you go.
But nowadays, it's quite a bit more than that. But
it's different ways to hack. And it could be like, two colleagues like going into it, like let's just say you both have your laptops. Okay, let's just sit here and do documentation. And you're doing stuff or like study buddies or walking buddies. There's something about being social beings that if there's somebody else doing it, it is a prompt. I mean, there's even some social psychology studies looking at like coffee machines in the office where there's an honor system, an honor box to drop money in. If there is a sign with eyes, people give more money than if there's a sign without eyes. And there's something about, even if we know that's a picture or whatever.
I've heard that if you put a mirror in your refrigerator, then it's like someone's looking at you, even though it's just your own face. Then you think twice about reaching for those snacks.
And there was one study about that, like I think it was an ADHD-related study. Like if my screen here was a mirror and I was doing work, more likely to keep going because then you see yourself go back and things like that. So
googly eyes all over my house.
That's right. Dad's watching. But all these things about how do we get ourselves to, one, have a plan for what we want to do, that the buy-in for why do I want to do this now? I call it the valuation. And it could also be for somebody, well, I want to be able to, if I can get it done now, then I don't have to worry about this Saturday when we're doing the thing as a family or whatever it may be. Now, that doesn't work all the time, but it's just the things, even if we're 60% of the time. And like I tell my clients, if we invented a medication with those results, we're billionaires. But because it's behaviorally, we go, I'm still failing 40% of the time. Well, nobody's 100%. So the to-do list is some of these specific things like documentation, running an errand, making a phone call, these things that are really easy to fall by the wayside, and trying to keep them, at least the first iteration, I'll advise about 2 to 5 items until you know how much you can handle. Some people might have a longer to-do list, but they have the spirit of, I know I'm not doing everything, but I just want to have, if I don't do this, I'll do this other thing. So some of the mistakes are not defining some things for the to-do list. Oh, I'll figure out. Winging it is high cognitive load.
Okay.
Because then it's like, okay, what am I doing today? Now, all of a sudden, that's like,
Got it. So you're saying like the way my to-do list works is it's just, I don't want to forget that I need to do this stuff. And so if my wife asks me like, do this, it goes on the list, because if I have to rely on my working memory, it's not happening. And so anything that I need to do that isn't built into my day, like seeing patients and checking charts, then it has to go on the to-do list. And then when that happens is different. And for me, it's more fluid when this tends to happen. And, it is not as clearly defined as it could be, but I've found that it works for me. But from what you're saying, it sounds like keep the to-do list short in bite-sized pieces so it doesn't become overwhelming. And then you look at it and you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to get all of this done. So I'm not going to get any of it done.
Yeah, and again, some people can do the larger list, but they know, it's in the spirit of, I just want to keep track of all these things, and whatever I don't get to, it carries over to tomorrow or the next weekend or whatever it is. So the important message here with everything that we've been talking about this time and the last time is there's a lot of different ways to do things well. Like if one thing's not working or you're not feeling it that day, there's some other ways to get to it. And, like you said, that forgiveness and charity, there's also that self-compassion. Now, compassion doesn't mean everything's okay, just do what you feel like doing. It is the understanding, like, these things are hard. Nobody's perfect. We all slip up from time to time, but we want to get back to it. We have whatever the responsibility is, and it could be our professional responsibility. It could be that which we want to do it for our children, whatever the valuation is, or not have to think about this task anymore.
Yeah.
Just having it off. I don't want to think about this anymore. I'm sick of it. Whatever it is that works for us. And then, like I said, some people are pretty good at, okay, I have all these things to do. I'll just get to them at whatever order. Other people might have a certain sequencing. I got to get this thing out of the way first thing or else I won't do it. And some of that might be, okay, if I have to run these errands, let me go to this place because it closes early. And there might be a logic behind it. It's, again.
So it sounds like know thyself, right? Know what trips you up, know what works for you.
Right.
While you're figuring out, it's okay to iterate. If it didn't work, try something else. But one thing that I do want to mention before we go is if you still haven't gotten started, you haven't broken it down small enough. And so if you do have something that's on your to-do list, and we talked about it earlier in terms of touching the task, but if you've got something on your to-do list that's just so daunting that you don't even want to touch it, there's also the breaking it down into smaller pieces. I'm just going to do this small part of it. And so, but my question is, if that's going to go on your to-do list, right? Like if you're going to break it down by pieces and each little piece is going to go on your to-do list, that sounds like something that someone might use as procrastivity, right?
No,
so now they're feeling good because they're breaking it down into smaller, and meanwhile, that's taking up so much time in and of itself, and it becomes kind of a paradox, wasting time doing the things that's supposed to save you time.
An analogy of this would be the college student who's writing a paper and they have to have at least 3 references and they're on the library and they've downloaded 55 PDFs. So it's productive. I feel good.
I feel like all the physician listeners have absolutely done that. I've done that for talks where I'm just like download.
Feels good.
And
it's self-medicating.
That I'm never going to read and never going to get to all those.
Right. Then you got to go back and go through them all. No, but that example is we're only talking about the first step or 2 or 3. That's where that's, if I can get to the gym, if I can go upstairs and put on my gym clothes, or if I can push myself away from the table with the intention of going outside for a walk. It is sort of that small, changing the script, one little step at a time. So even getting to the workstation. So even for a large thing, if it's, I'm going to get, with my writing, there's a local coffee shop every Saturday morning at 7. The Saturday morning crew knows me well and knows whatever I'm working on. But if I can just get to the coffee shop, then I'm going to write for a few hours, at least 2 hours. Yeah. And it's embarrassing. I'm down to, I know I'm calibrated. 1 cup of coffee is about an hour of writing. So I know, am I good for another cup of coffee? And that means, can I go for another hour? Sometimes no.
And your reward is you get to have that second cup of coffee.
Exactly. But also, do I get to the garage? Can I go out and get the lawnmower out? Can I get to the work computer? And it doesn't guarantee it, but that's the breaking the wall. So it's not like it has to be itemized all the way out, but just the first few moves to get engaged. Yeah.
Okay. And then you've got that.
It's a great question, though. Yeah.
Fantastic. This has been such amazing advice that the listeners are going to be able to implement immediately into their lives. And so if they want to take a deeper dive and learn more about you and your writing, where do we find you and where do we find your books?
You can find it all on my website, www.cbt4ADHD.com. Some people hear CBD and they get really excited, but it's not. CBT, like CBT.
Cognitive Behavioral Therapy,
Yeah,
CBT, yes, for
CBT
ADHD.
for ADHD. And this will be on there, old podcast and links to the books and just other things. You'll be sick of me by the time you log off.
Definitely not, because I know a lot of the listeners, this resonates so well because there are a lot of physicians out there that are neurodivergent, or the term, I guess, neurospicy, where they might not have ADHD, but they're definitely on the cusp, or they do, or they're still figuring it out. And this, even for those who aren't, this is all such great material for them. So thank you for all the work that you do for your patients and continue to do. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. And right back at you.
Thanks for listening. I have a favor to ask. You listened to the episode until the end, which means either you fell asleep or you really liked the episode. So please write us a 5-star review, take a screenshot, and email it to me so I can send you a quick guide on how to earn patient trust in 20 seconds or less. Email me at brad@physiciansguidetodoctoring.com and feel free to suggest a topic or guest. I take your requests seriously. The views expressed on this episode are those of the interviewer and the interviewee and do not represent the views of their employer or even their significant other. Even though the magic of podcasting makes it sound like I'm talking directly to you, this is not a doctor-patient relationship, and this is not medical advice, or financial advice, or legal advice, or really any advice. Thanks again for listening to Succeed in Medicine.